All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We're here for today's Power Webinar, 3 Game Changers to Improve Your Field Ticketing Operations. My name is Patrick Urista, and I'll be moderating for today's presentation. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a second, but first, I'd like to say that we're very excited to have Mike Koebel with us today. Mike is the Director of FSS, or Field Service Solutions, Sales at AssetWorks. He's a 27-plus year veteran of wireless mobile computing deployments and has a wide range of experience with electronic field ticketing deployments across a diverse fleet-based industries. So before we get started, I just want to give everyone a quick heads up. The microphones have been muted, so if anyone has any questions at any time during the presentation, you can just use the WebEx chat tool. You should see the chat icon located on your screen, and this acts as an instant messaging tool, so please feel free to use the WebEx chat tool to enter any questions during the presentation. Just make sure you send them to the host, and I'll be more than happy to field and relay them to Mike at the conclusion of this presentation for our brief Q&A session. So with that said, I think we're all ready to get started. Mike, whenever you're ready, go ahead and kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Again, I'm Mike Koebel with AssetWorks, and today in our short time, I just wanted to talk about some of the 3 key things that can bring you value in electronic field ticketing and how they can improve your operations. So as we, without further ado, we're kind of get into the 3 core game changers that we want to talk about today. And that is, 1 is real-time communication. 2 is going paperless, and the 3rd one is automated workflows. So it's a combination of these 3 things working together that really brings value to organization to really the standard things. I want to reduce my organization's costs, I want to increase my revenue, and subsequent improve my customer service that makes me more competitive, increases my revenue fundamentally. So let's get into electronic field ticketing first and just kind of describe, hey, what does this mean in the relevance to the session here today? So typically, any one of you in your organization today, you're going to have your existing office systems. This is your accounting. It can be as simple as I have QuickBooks, or maybe I got a more extensive ERP, a Microsoft Dynamics, et cetera. So you have existing office systems in place today. And then when we add electronic field ticketing to that, so that gives you a ticketing and dispatch component for the office side, and then there's a mobile side. So of course, for your field operators or drivers, there's going to be some form of vehicle hardware, be it a smartphone, a tablet, or maybe a more ruggedized style of a vehicle-specific tablet. And of course, there's going to be mobile applications running on those devices. So that's sort of from a high level, that's what electronic field ticketing, system architecture would look like. So the first game changer is real-time communications. So what's the value of real-time communications to your organization? So again, how is this going to reduce my costs? So when you take something like a dispatcher, which is a lot of personnel costs you have involved, when you have real-time communications, all load and job instructions can be sent instantly to the field. So you're eliminating repetitive mundane tasks that a dispatcher is doing. So they're not, get on a cell phone, texting, calling out on the radio, however you get work from your office out to your field personnel. So you're eliminating those mundane tasks. Another element of reducing costs is a concept of a client portal. We're going to dive a little deeper into it in the presentation, but really a client portal is I'm getting client loads or jobs electronically into my system, or the client themselves are actually entering them into the system. So that eliminates your own administrative time and dispatcher time in creating that initial piece of work because you're getting it direct from your client. Okay? And now the value of reducing dispatcher time is they can be spending more time problem solving and worrying about customer service focus events. And ultimately, a single dispatcher, truck pusher, they can manage more vehicles. And what we've seen is in deployments that we've done with electronic ticketing, the average dispatcher is supporting 3 times the number of vehicles they were previously. So tremendous cost saving to the organization. Another side of reducing costs is from the driver side, of course. You're increasing their time. Real-time data means I'm getting loader job instructions anytime. I don't have to stop and to answer phone calls, especially if that's a compliance factor for your group that you cannot talk on the phone or do text messaging while driving. So now I no longer have to stop and write down. All this information gets sent out. When the driver stopped, he can read it and know where his next tasks are, right? Any updates are coming from the field in real time. So some of these updates can be automated, such as I leave the yard, I arrive at a job site with geofences. So you can send updates instantly in real time without having to involve the driver. And anytime they push a button, that's getting back to dispatch in real time. So it's very quick transfer of information. You're reducing the driver's time. They can focus on driving, doing their work, doing their job, doing their loads. And the other advantage of real time is that if there is available gaps, you can dispatch information out to that driver for work that fits the remaining hours. If hours of service come into play, I know that driver's got 3 hours left. I'm going to send them a job they can fit into that time. Avoids redirects or avoids downtime. Drivers are being idle because they haven't got information. And another element for the drivers is eliminating the manual completion of paperwork. A lot of scenarios end up where drivers and operators can do their work during the day, and then at the end of the day, they're sitting in the truck and they're manually completing the paperwork. So they're filling out information, and that can end up with errors because that end of the day paperwork cleanup, I may have missed a few things that I did 10 hours ago. All right. So some of the impact on revenue, again, dispatch truck pushers, you can optimize your load distribution. You can identify over-under capacity situations. Again, real-time data, I'm looking at exactly what's happening with my fleet at any given time. And I can look at next Thursday and see that, hey, I need more vehicles because I have this much more work. So instead of having to decline work, I can make sure I got enough staff on hand to handle it, right? So and that's your vehicle capacity. That's also your driver capacity, okay? I can also validate work as it happens. So what's the value proposition of that? Well, when I have a completed work coming back in real time, if there's anything that looks out of sorts, out of order, I can call that field operator right away and get it resolved versus 30, 40, 50 days later when maybe your customer's complaining about it and everyone's trying to remember what happened, you can validate that information in real time. And again, that gives you the accuracy for subsequent invoicing. All right. And then on the driver's side, you're having your drivers focus on load delivery, and they should be able, and they can do more loads per day. And again, you're reducing idle time. You know when they're completed work, you know when they're available. That real-time communication, again, gives you that visibility to make sure you're utilizing your drivers to the fullest extent. Right? And then from a general customer service impact, you can answer questions in real time. You get that call, where's my load, where's my truck, where's my crew? You're eliminating that circular phone tag of dispatch phoning the supervisor, them not being able to answer their call maybe when they're driving. You just eliminate all that hassle of trying to track down where the people are in the field. You can see where they are in the map. You know exactly from the status fields. You know exactly what's happening with that in real time. Okay. And then that lets you deal with same-day customer requests. So from a customer service impact, you can call your dispatch, your truck pushers can see in real time where can I fit in this new work. They can reassign loads intelligently using real-time data, what's happening right now at 2 in the afternoon, not the original plan that's probably gone to hell, and the closest available dispatch. So these are some of the customer service impact items that electronic ticketing can give you. And a few other items we touched earlier on customer portals, but some of the value add here is, again, customers can enter and manage their own loads. Your customers themselves, they have visibility in that real-time data, so they don't have to actually call because they can see that. They can see where their work that you are doing for them is in that real time, and you give them those some limited views into the system in the customer portal. Again, it reduces your administration costs. You're not keying in load information. You're passing on basically some of your work to your clients. But the good thing about this, it makes your customers sticky. It's easy. Somehow got ahead of things here. Sorry, 1 second. It makes your customers sticky. It's easy for them to give you work. They have great visibility into how the work's being done, and that's the type of customers are more demanding, and that's what makes them stickier today. So the next game changer is going paperless. So what's the value of going paperless? Well, cost reduction is pretty straightforward. There's the cost of your paper forms, there's cost of printing, the cost of storage, and handling and sharing. And really the handling and sharing is one of the key points. We take one of our clients, every month they were getting 16,000 paper tickets mailed to their office. And while it was supposed to be spread out over the month, it always came in at the last few days of the month. And you can imagine the chaos that ensued in trying to get that all manually entered into the accounting system, trying to type that in. Just the pure handling of that much paper was tremendous. And Gartner, a renowned research firm, has indicated 3% of a company's revenue is spent on paper and handling that. That's a huge chunk of money. So further on, electronic forms. So again, getting away from paper, going to electronic. A huge item is the time cost of duplicate data entry. Once you have single point of data entry across, from start to finish of the work that you've done, you're going to eliminate errors from transposing all the data. You eliminate all, of course, the time from duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate data entry that we've seen. You don't have to worry about deciphering handwriting after the fact. And another big item is inconsistency of field data capture. Field operator driver, people are using different abbreviations, different naming conventions, and when you bring that all up into your ERP system, they don't like inconsistencies when you're trying to do consistent billing. Okay, but that's what happens when you're in paper. But going electronic will eliminate that. And again, you have excess overhead and validated invoice data. You take that example of a client. I'm wading through 16,000 tickets. I eventually get an invoice out, and someone calls back and says, hey, I'm already disputing this. Well, you got to go find that ticket, and sometimes it's just not worth the time. There's a huge overhead in validating a paper-based process. And some of the revenue impact, invoicing is obviously a critical element, is these same clients that we have, they don't know how many tickets they lose. In all this paper process, they were losing tickets. There was no idea. So if I lose a ticket, I can't invoice. No invoice, no revenue. So electronic ticketing lets you eliminate that lost tickets. All right. And again, you also can capture key billing events. So being electronic, I'm capturing automatically when I arrive on site. If I have mandatory data entry, I'm capturing things that relate to how you bill your clients and making sure you're getting paid for the work and time you spent. All right. And a big critical item is same-day billing. So that gives you faster payments and improved cash flow. And this is a huge item. A lot of our clients, on average, their billing turnaround has gone from 20 to 35 days to essentially same-day billing. And that's been a huge benefit for a lot of the organizations we work with. Another additional value of going electronic, again, accuracy of invoices. We talked about that. And when your invoices are accurate, you're reducing your number of disputes, because disputes are costly. You got administration, you got to manage disputes. And if you're electronic, if there is a dispute, you can have very timely resolution. All the data is right in front of you. I'm not wading through boxes of paper. And again, I have data capture to justify billings. If they're disputing a standby time, you can see in the map, say, yeah, my guys arrived then, they waited 3 hours for your team. That's a valid billing. Again, it improves your customer service. If you're not disputing invoices, that certainly improves your relationship with your client. And again, in a lot of our deployments, we've seen averages where people have reduced their customer disputes from 15% of invoices to less than 1%. Huge cost saving and excellent customer service improvement. Okay. Another side of electronic forms is driver safety. So I can get away from that calls and texts and drivers writing things down. So that also helps me ensure my fleet and my drivers and operators are being in compliance with both legal and corporate policies regarding distracted driving. Okay. There's also capabilities to log in some of the devices deployed to fully lock up the screen and device while they're in motion. So they're still getting all their messages and job information, and you're still sending in arrive information via geofencing, but the driver cannot interact with it. The screen is essentially locked up and frozen until the vehicle is stopped. Okay. And this lets you avoid costs from, again, driver discipline, your own time, fines, accidents, and of course the personal injury and death, which is the worst situation that can occur. All right. And the third item today is the automated workflows. So automated workflows is, the goal of an electronic ticketing system is not just to take a paper process that's inefficient and make it electronic. The goal is capturing, communicating the right information to the right order, the right time to the right entity. So that's critical to improving your operations. And at the same time, you want to make sure you're adhering to both corporate and customer policies. All right. So these workflow types, they can be simple load-unload workflow. That's a very simple workflow. You could get into a multi-stop delivery pickup type application, or more of a job site services where I'm tracking inventory use, operators time, equipment time, crew time. So it can get a lot more complicated depending on the type of workflow and type of work that your organization does. So if you kind of break it down to what is dispatch, truck push, what does that side of the organization have to do? To facilitate workflows, there's mandatory data entered by dispatch. A piece of work is not considered a piece of work until these mandatory data is entered in by dispatch. So utilizing things like drop-down selection lists with hierarchical drop-down lists that ensure I'm selecting the right information, the information is in the right format, so when we roll back that up to ERP and billing, it's very consistent data. This also facilitates, faster data entry for the dispatch when they're entering new customer information. All right. You need to have field data error checking. Again, the whole goal of this is not just to take a paper form and just make it electronic and go, hey, fill this out. You want to put a lot of intelligence around this workflow. All right. Then there's going to be automated data capture. So this is going to be such things as timestamps, what personnel were involved in creating this ticket. A lot of that's more for the audit trail down the road as to following up on everyone that was involved in touching that piece of work. Okay, and then integration is critical. Given most organizations already have an office system, there always is integration components, and that's part of the workflow. How does the integration flow between the ticketing system and your existing systems? What's back and forth? Again, that's all on a per client decided basis. Then on the mobile side, the key with the mobile side is to keep things simplified and streamlined for your drivers. So you want to step them through, hey, what's mandatory data that you have to enter? What's maybe a mandatory image attachment? Let's say, for example, if I'm doing a job site safety analysis and I need to take a picture of the job site and attach that. So you want to step the driver through, controlled views of the data, what the key statuses are around that data view. So you really step them through the process. You don't want a large, complicated form where they get lost, confused. So you really want to have this, what we call context-driven functionality. When I'm at a certain stage of my field ticket, for example, if I'm doing a arrive at a job site, I'm only going to be able to see fields and relevant data and actions that relate to me arriving at a job site. And it can be just very simple as, again, complete a JSA. And then when I go to complete a job, it's going to have very specific functionalities that it can step the driver through to complete their ticket and make sure they're entering the key information they need to do that. Same as the mobile, so same as the dispatch side, drop-down hierarchical selection lists, make them easy to enter in data capture consistency to ensure when it flows up to invoicing, it's all the same format and you're not losing things in translation. Field data error checking. And there's a lot of automated data capture as well on the mobile side because you're able to GPS stamp events. I know when I leave the yard, when I arrive at a job site, or everything's time stamped, location stamped. So you have a lot of data you can use for KPIs, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So you can have a simple workflow. This is just a sample of that, just to give you an idea. It still has a number of steps, but it's pretty straightforward. You may have a much more complicated workflow. So the goal of your electronic ticketing is to be tailored around each of your unique workflows, and you may have multiple workflows across your organization. So ensuring that you are getting the work done and capturing the data that you need and your customers need to properly track and ultimately invoice and bill. The other side of is capturing like mandatory form completion. So when you're going through your workflow, again, I talked about it. I have to have job site safety assessment completed at the start of a job, so that will be into the workflow. That's mandatory. I might have client-specific data say, hey, this customer needs this information. So on a client-by-client basis, you can ensure you're capturing the right information and making that mandatory so you always have the right information that your client is expecting. And you may have some mandatory attachments. Maybe some of our clients are going to a third-party, loading station. So there's a third-party load ticket. So it's a mandatory that they take a picture of that attachment and attach it to the work order. So there's a record of associated paperwork with that piece of work. And then there can be other compliance items like for DOT Industry Canada, that could be forcing them to make sure they're doing their vehicle, pre- and post-trip vehicle inspections. Those types of compliance things are part of it as well. So some of the other key workflow structure items are how many loads job do I send to a driver? I can send single jobs, or I can automate dispatch to the next one on completion, or I can send them multiple jobs. If I send them multiple loads, your workflow, you can force them to go, hey, you have to do this in order because this is what we think you should do, or you can leave it up to the driver's discretion. You can also set up parameters where when an operator in the field reaches a certain status, it can automatically notify dispatch to do some form of action. Okay. Well, we also have scenarios where, a time-based driver problem example is that clients that they have equipment in the field and they actually just transition out drivers. So a couple hours before shift change, automatically pops up a prompt to say, hey, operator, where are you going to be at shift change? They indicate where they're going to be. Back in the office, a reporter's run, so when they're bringing the staff out to the field, they know where to bring them. All right? And again, there's automatic data logging. We talked, there's timestamps, geostamps, location stamps, and that really helps you validate your whole job process from the time the driver or operator leaves the yard and gets back. You've really tracked a lot of data on that whole situation. So speaking of those KPIs, there's driver KPIs. So for example, there's arrival time to start work time. So we had a client that guys would come into the yard, they would mess around for more than 45 minutes and before they left the yard. Well, we reduced their yard departure time from when they arrived to leave the yard. We improved it by 30 minutes a day. So you take 150 field operators and you got 30 minutes extra work a day. That's a huge cost saving. All right. Another KPI information you have when I arrive at a job site versus when I start work, when I complete work versus when I get to the yard. Same challenges with the one customer. Drivers would complete their work and then they'd hang out at the coffee shop because they didn't want to get to the yard early, otherwise they get put to work. Tracking loading time, unloading time. Why does this driver take on average 15 more minutes to load than anybody else? What's going on? Okay, so how many loads per day? That's a pretty straightforward one. So a lot of KPIs, and you can also use these KPIs for your customers. So if you have a customer that maybe you have fixed rates, but you're finding, listen, I'm always waiting at your job site more than anybody else, or your estimates on volume, the things that you're doing, they're always off. You're going to start gathering a lot of data that may give you some KPIs that allows you to maybe change your rates and justify higher billing to your clients, or get rid of the bad clients. All right. But to wrap up, I know we're catching up on our time here. When you go from paper to electronics, it's a huge deal. It brings a lot of value to your organization, right? And it's also appreciated that every organization is different. While the fundamental broad goals are the same, everyone's unique, and there needs to be some flexibility to address the key needs of each of the organizations. And the key thing is it's just go beyond just making a paper process electronic. So we have a lot of organizations where we start and they maybe have 5, 6, 7 different paper forms involved. Often you bring that down to 1 or 2. So spend that upfront time in looking at the workflows, looking at making the processes more efficient, not just making them electronic. And when you do that, you're going to reduce your costs, increase your revenue, and be a lot more competitive out there in this tougher market. And with that, we're hitting on the end of our time. If there was any questions, please, Pat, did you have any questions come in while we were doing this?
Yeah, great job, Mike. A lot of information there. Okay, everyone, we are now going to open up the floor for some questions. Just a reminder, if you have any questions at this time, please just send them to me using the WebEx chat tool on your screen. Provided that we have enough time, I'll pass your question to Mike, and I'll be more than happy to answer. We do have a couple questions already right out the gate, so we'll just jump right into it, Mike. So the first question I have is, can your system integrate with my accounting package? So I'm sure that's a concern that you hear a lot. I'm sure you get that question a lot, so maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the expectation is that almost every deployment, they already have an accounting package. We don't tend to go in and replace accounting packages. This is a complement to it. So there's multiple ways to address that. We have some off-the-shelf integrations, full range of APIs that allow us to work with a number of third-party systems. So yeah, that's pretty much a standard task that happens with every deployment.
All right, awesome. Next question, can you support multiple types of forms? You just shown there, no two forms are alike. I'm sure this is a question that comes up a lot too, so maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this. Can you support multiple types of forms?
Yeah, no, for sure. While I mentioned we have a lot of clients that come to us with, they might have 5 or 6 different types of ticket types. A lot of times we can reduce that down to 1 or 2, but for example, I think our biggest client, one of our big clients, has 12 different workflows. So those are 12 different unique structures that we're supporting in one system for them.
Right. Yeah. That's everyone's a little bit different. We do have time for one more. Does your ticketing system also support driver logs?
Yeah, so one of the mobile options is a tablet that a ruggedized certified ELD tablet that allows us to do all our field ticketing. Plus, it's an electronic driver log, DVR, GPS tracking, driver behavior. So yeah, it's kind of the full comprehensive solution that does include the driver logs. All
right. Awesome. Well, great job, Mike. It does look like that is all the time we have for today. So at this time, I'd like to thank you all again for taking the time to attend today's presentation. Hopefully you found some valuable takeaways to keep in mind moving forward. Mike, I want to thank you on behalf of AssetWorks, just once again for just sharing your expertise and your product highlights with everyone today. As you see, the contact information is available here should any of you have any follow-up questions or concerns. And thank you all for attending today. Mike and I will be sticking around for another few minutes just in case you guys have any questions. Otherwise, have a great day. We look forward to having you with us next time.
Thanks, Pat. Much appreciated.